Don't die on me, little one. Claire Whitmore dropped to her knees in the snow as another faint whimper rose from beneath the white drift beside the pine trees. The winter storm had swallowed Frostvale for hours, burying the narrow forest trail beneath nearly a foot of snow, and Claire should have kept walking. Her fingers were already numb. Her worn boots were soaked through, and the small cabin she called home was still more than a mile away. But then the sound came again.
Weak, frightened, alive.
Claire pushed aside the snow with both hands until something silver-white appeared beneath it. Fur. She dug faster, ignoring the cold biting into her fingers, and uncovered a tiny wolf pup curled against the frozen ground. One of its legs was caught beneath a broken branch, and a snapped silver chain hung loosely around its neck. "Easy," Claire whispered. "I'm not going to hurt you." The pup opened its eyes. Bright amber stared back at her with an intelligence that made Claire suddenly forget the storm. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in courage and destiny, hit like and subscribe. These stories remind us, love finds the broken." Now back to Claire. She carefully lifted the branch and freed the pup. It trembled against her hands, so Claire pulled off her cloak and wrapped the little creature inside it, even though the wind immediately cut through her thin gray dress. "There," she murmured. "You get the warm part. I'll complain about it later." It was ridiculous to joke with a wolf, but tonight she preferred its company to the voices still echoing from the winter moon gathering. Broken Omega. Wolfless girl. 23, and still useless. Claire had endured those words while standing beneath hundreds of lanterns as the other wolves celebrated strength, rank, and perfect shifts. Then she had quietly walked away before anyone could see how deeply those words had landed. She looked down at the pup. "Guess neither of us had a very good night." The pup made a soft sound and pressed closer to her. That tiny gesture stopped her cold. Something about it felt less like fear and more like
trust.
Claire rose and started toward home, carrying the pup against her chest. She had taken only 3 steps when it suddenly stirred. Its amber eyes widened. One small paw slipped from the cloak and closed firmly around her wrist. Heat flashed through Claire's arm. She gasped and nearly dropped to her knees. It wasn't pain. It felt like sunlight rushing beneath her skin in the middle of winter. "What are you doing?" The pup released her. Claire stared at her wrist. Beneath the melting snowflakes, silver lines were appearing across her pale skin. One curved into a crescent. Another formed the shape of a wolf. Then a small crown emerged between them, glowing softly beneath the moonlight. Claire stopped breathing. She had seen that symbol only once before, stamped into the wax beneath a royal decree. Every wolf in Frostvale knew it. The mark belonged to one man, Alpha King Nathaniel Hawthorne. Claire looked at the pup in her arms. The little wolf simply blinked at her. Then somewhere beyond the snowy trees, a distant howl rolled across the mountains, deep enough to make the forest seem to listen. The mark on Claire's wrist answered with a sudden pulse of silver light. Claire did not remember the last half-mile home. She remembered only the silver mark beneath her sleeve, the warm weight of the wolf pup against her chest, and that distant howl following her through the trees like something searching for an answer. By the time she reached her cabin, snow covered her hair and shoulders. She hurried inside, locked the door, and carried the pup toward the fireplace. "You are safe now," she whispered, though she was no longer certain which of them needed to hear it. Claire added 2 logs to the fading fire and placed several folded blankets near the hearth. Under the warm lamplight, she finally examined her unexpected guest properly. The pup was young, perhaps 6 years old if its wolf form followed the usual shifting age, but nothing else about it seemed ordinary. Its silver-white coat caught the firelight with an almost golden shimmer, and beneath the loose chain around its neck rested a tiny black clasp engraved with a crown. Claire's stomach tightened. The same crown now rested on her wrist. "Who are you?" she murmured. The pup answered by resting its head against her knee. Claire cleaned the snow from its fur, wrapped its injured leg carefully, and offered it warm broth. Within an hour, its trembling eased. Her own did not. She uncovered her wrist again. The mark remained. Crescent. Wolf.
Crown.
No dream. No trick of moonlight. By morning, the storm had weakened, leaving Frostvale buried beneath a bright, white silence. Claire needed medicine for the pup, so she wrapped the mark beneath a strip of cloth and left the animal sleeping beside the fire. At the pack house, conversations softened as she entered. Claire was accustomed to that kind of silence. She kept her eyes forward and approached the medicine cabinet. Claire? Emily Carter, one of the younger Omegas, stepped beside her. Your hand. Claire looked down. The cloth had loosened. Before she could cover it, Emily saw the silver edge beneath. What is that? Her voice carried farther than Claire wanted. Several heads turned. Claire quickly pulled down her sleeve. Too late. Elder William Mercer had entered from the adjoining hall. His gray eyes settled on her wrist. Show me. Claire hesitated. It is nothing. Show me, Claire. There was no cruelty in his voice this time. There was something worse.
Fear.
Slowly, Claire removed the cloth. The room became completely still. William stared at the mark until the color seemed to leave his face. Where did you get that? I found a pup in the forest. A nervous murmur moved through the room. It touched my wrist, and this appeared. William stepped closer, but did not touch her. That symbol belongs to the royal house. Someone behind Claire whispered, An Omega cannot carry the king's seal. Another voice answered, Not unless she stole it. Claire turned sharply. I stole nothing. The words came stronger than she expected. William raised one hand, silencing the room. His gaze remained fixed on the silver crown. Whatever happened in that forest, this cannot remain secret. Claire felt the mark suddenly warm beneath the morning light. Then a bell rang from the watchtower outside.
Once. Twice.
3 times. Every face in the room changed. William moved toward the window. Beyond the snow-covered road, dark riders were approaching Frostvale beneath royal banners. The King's Guard, he whispered. Claire covered her wrist, but the silver light was already shining through the cloth. The third bell had barely faded when Alpha Marcus Hale ordered the pack house doors closed. Claire turned from the window, her pulse suddenly louder than the nervous whispers around her. Outside, the royal riders continued along the snow-covered road, still distant enough that their faces could not be seen. Nobody leaves, Marcus said as he entered the hall. He was Frostvale's local alpha, broad-shouldered and usually confident, but this morning his expression carried an uneasiness Claire had never seen before. Elder William stepped toward him. Marcus, there is something you need to see. Marcus followed William's gaze to Claire. What has she done now? The familiar contempt should have made her shrink. Instead, Claire thought of the small wolf pup sleeping beside her fireplace.
Nothing, she said.
Marcus frowned. I was not speaking to you. You were speaking about me. The room fell quiet. Claire surprised herself almost as much as everyone else. Marcus crossed the floor and stopped several feet away. Show me your wrist. Claire kept her sleeve lowered.
Why?
Because royal guards are approaching my territory, and William tells me you appeared this morning carrying something that belongs to the crown. It appeared on me. I did not take anything. Marcus held out his hand. Then prove it. Claire slowly uncovered her wrist. The silver mark gleamed against her pale skin. Marcus stared at it. For one brief second, she saw recognition in his eyes. Then suspicion replaced it. Where did you find the seal? I already told Elder William. I found a wolf pup in the forest last night. A wolf pup gave you the Alpha King's mark? A few nervous laughs sounded behind him. Claire felt heat rise into her cheeks, but she refused to look down. I know how it sounds. It sounds impossible. Marcus turned toward the others. Royal symbols are protected by law. If she copied this mark or used forbidden magic to create it, Frostvale could answer for her actions. The whispers grew louder.
Thief. Fraud.
Broken Omega. Claire heard every word. Then Marcus looked back at her. Where is the pup? Her heart tightened. Safe. Where? Claire remained silent. Marcus's expression hardened. Bring it here. No. The word left her quietly. Marcus blinked. What did you say? Claire remembered the pup trembling beneath the blankets. She remembered the broken chain around its neck and the way it had pressed against her, as though she were the first safe thing it had found. I said no. Marcus stepped closer, his alpha presence filling the room. You do not understand the situation. Maybe I do not, Claire replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. But that pup was alone in a snowstorm. Until I know why, nobody is taking it anywhere. Marcus stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. Then the mark beneath her sleeve grew suddenly warm. Silver light spilled around her wrist. A strange pressure moved through the hall, gentle but undeniable. One by one, the wolves around Claire lowered their heads. Even Marcus went still. Claire stared at them, bewildered. Then the front doors opened. A royal guard stood beneath the archway, snow melting from his black cloak. He surveyed the silent room before speaking. By order of Alpha King Nathaniel Hawthorne, Frostvale is to be searched immediately. His next words emptied the room of every whisper. A child of the royal bloodline is missing. Claire felt the meaning of those words before she fully understood them. A child of the royal bloodline was missing. Around her, every wolf in the hall seemed to reach the same conclusion at once. Their eyes shifted toward her glowing wrist. Marcus turned pale. The pup, he whispered. Claire was already moving. It is at my cabin. The royal guard stepped into her path. Take me there. I will take you, but nobody frightens it. Something flickered across his expression, surprise perhaps, but he nodded. They had barely reached the doors when the sound of approaching horses rolled through Frostvale. Not a few riders this time. Dozens. Claire stepped outside into the bright winter morning as black banners appeared beyond the snow-covered buildings. At their center rode a man on a dark horse, his long black coat moving in the wind. Even from 50 yards away, Claire knew who he was. Nobody needed to announce Alpha King Nathaniel Hawthorne. Power seemed to travel ahead of him, quiet and controlled, turning conversations into silence as he passed. He dismounted before the pack house, snow crunching beneath his boots. His face was composed, but Claire saw what others might have missed. Exhaustion beneath his eyes. Worry held behind discipline. He was not a king visiting subjects. He was a man searching for someone he loved. Your Majesty, Marcus began, bowing deeply. We were just informed. Nathaniel looked past him. His gray eyes found Claire. Then her wrist. The mark pulsed once beneath her sleeve. His expression changed, but before he could speak, a small cry echoed from farther down the road. Claire turned. Her cabin door stood open. The wolf pup was racing through the snow, its wrapped leg making its steps uneven but determined. Ollie. The name broke from Nathaniel with such raw relief that Claire forgot to breathe. The pup crossed the final yards and leaped toward him. Nathaniel dropped to one knee and caught the little wolf against his chest. His eyes closed for a moment. The feared Alpha King said nothing. He simply held Ollie, as though the entire frozen world had narrowed to that small heartbeat. Claire felt something inside her soften. Ollie pushed his nose beneath Nathaniel's chin, then twisted around and looked toward Claire. Nathaniel followed his gaze. You found him last night, beneath the snow near the Eastern Trail. Nathaniel examined the blanket around Ollie and the careful wrapping on his leg. You cared for him. It was not a question. Claire nodded. He was cold and frightened. Marcus hurried forward. Your Majesty, we had no knowledge. She was sheltering royal blood. This Omega concealed the animal and somehow acquired your seal. Claire stiffened. Nathaniel's gaze moved slowly toward Marcus. Animal? The single word made Marcus hesitate. Nathaniel looked down at Ollie. This is Oliver Hawthorne, my sisters.
Son.
Silence spread across the courtyard. Claire stared at the little wolf. Ollie, a royal child. Nathaniel rose with him safely in his arms. Then his attention returned to Claire. And she did not acquire anything. He stepped closer. Show me your wrist. Claire slowly pulled back her sleeve. Silver light shimmered across the mark. Nathaniel stopped breathing for one suspended second. His eyes widened, not with anger, but recognition. That is impossible, he whispered. Ollie reached one small paw toward Claire, and the mark immediately brightened. Nathaniel looked from his nephew to her wrist. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. Ollie chose you. Claire stared at Nathaniel. Chose me for what? The question seemed to tighten the winter air between them. Nathaniel did not answer immediately. He looked down at Ollie, who remained perfectly calm in his arms, then back at the silver mark glowing across Claire's wrist. Around them, Frostvale waited in absolute silence. We should speak somewhere private, Nathaniel said. Claire shook her head. They accused me in front of everyone. Whatever proves I did nothing wrong can be said in front of everyone too. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Elder William lowered his eyes, but Nathaniel studied Claire with something close to approval. Fair enough. He stepped nearer, careful to leave space between them. May I see your wrist? Claire hesitated before extending her hand. Nathaniel did not touch her at first. His gaze traced the crescent, the wolf, and the small crown. Who touched you when this appeared? Ollie. Only Ollie? Yes. Nathaniel finally rested 2 fingers lightly against the edge of her wrist. Warmth moved beneath Claire's skin. The mark brightened, and Nathaniel immediately withdrew his hand. Surprise flashed across his face. What does that mean? Claire asked. Nathaniel glanced toward his guards. Even they looked unsettled. My family carries an old royal bond. It predates the throne itself. Children born directly into the Hawthorne line sometimes recognize what our records call safe blood. Claire frowned. I am not related to you. It does not mean family by birth. Nathaniel's voice softened. It means someone the royal wolf recognizes as completely trustworthy. Claire looked at Ollie. The pup stretched one paw toward her again. He barely knows me. Sometimes instinct knows before reason does. Marcus cleared his throat. Your Majesty, surely an Omega cannot receive a royal recognition mark. Nathaniel turned his head. You keep saying Omega, as though it explains her worth. Marcus fell silent. Nathaniel looked back at Claire. This has happened before, but not for nearly 200 years, and never exactly like this. Claire's stomach tightened. Exactly like what? Nathaniel pointed toward the silver crown without touching it. A recognition mark should be complete the moment it appears. Yours is not. Claire stared at the symbol. Until now, she had assumed the delicate gaps between the silver lines were part of its design. What is missing? I do not know. That answer frightened her more than certainty would have. Nathaniel Hawthorne was the Alpha King. Men like him were supposed to know things. Then remove it. His eyes met hers. I cannot. Claire pulled her sleeve down. So, I am supposed to walk around carrying a royal mark nobody understands?
For now, yes.
Nathaniel's expression shifted when he noticed her frustration. But you will not face this alone. Ollie suddenly wriggled in his arms, reaching insistently toward Claire. Nathaniel lowered him, and the pup immediately crossed the snow and leaned against her boots. Claire crouched beside him. The moment her hand touched his silver fur, the mark warmed again. Nathaniel watched closely. Then his gaze dropped to the broken chain around Ollie's neck. His expression sharpened. That chain was not his. Claire looked up. It was on him when I found him. Nathaniel carefully examined the black clasp. I know. He became very still. And whoever put it there may still be nearby. He turned toward the royal guards. We're returned to the Citadel today. Then he looked at Claire. You are coming with us. Claire had imagined the royal citadel many times, but never from inside a black carriage with the Alpha King sitting across from her and a silver-white wolf pup asleep against
Her side.
Frostvale disappeared behind them before noon, replaced by miles of snow-covered pine forest and distant mountains shining beneath a pale winter sky. Ollie had refused every attempt to move him from Claire's seat. Nathaniel had finally stopped trying. He has made his preference clear, he said, watching his nephew sleep. Claire rested one hand lightly against Ollie's back. He has strong opinions for someone who has barely spoken to me. A faint smile touched Nathaniel's face. So brief, she almost missed it. That runs in the family. By late afternoon, Hawthorne Citadel appeared above the valley, built from dark stone with tall windows reflecting the snow. Claire expected servants to stare when she entered.
They did.
She expected whispers. Those came too. What she did not expect was Nathaniel quietly ordering that she be given a guest room near Ollie's chambers. "I am not a prisoner?" she asked. Nathaniel looked almost offended. "You saved my nephew. Frostvale treated me like a criminal this morning. This is not Frostvale." The words stayed with her. That evening, Claire sat beside the window of her unfamiliar room, examining the incomplete mark beneath candlelight, when a frightened cry echoed through the corridor. She was on her feet before she thought. Guards and attendants had gathered outside Ollie's chamber. Inside, furniture had been pushed aside, blankets lay across the floor, and the little wolf pup had hidden beneath the bed. "He woke from a nightmare," a healer whispered. "Nobody can calm him." Nathaniel knelt several feet from the bed.
His voice was gentle.
"Ollie, it is me. You are home." A frightened whimper answered. Nathaniel's shoulders lowered. Claire recognized that helplessness. It was the same feeling she had carried for years whenever someone told her she was not enough. "May I try?" Nathaniel looked at her, then moved aside. Claire entered slowly and sat on the floor. She did not reach beneath the bed. She did not call Ollie's name. "You do not have to come out," she said softly. "Nobody is going to make you." Silence. Claire folded her hands in her lap. "I was scared last night, too." The forest sounded enormous in that storm. Two amber eyes appeared beneath the bed. Claire continued. "So we can sit here until the room feels smaller." A tiny nose emerged, then one paw. Ollie crawled forward inch by inch until he reached Claire. She remained still. He made the final choice himself, climbing into her lap and pressing his face against her sweater. His breathing slowly settled. Claire wrapped her arms around him. When she looked up, Nathaniel was standing in the doorway. Something had changed in his expression. Not royal authority, not suspicion. Wonder. "I have spent years learning how to command an entire kingdom," he said quietly. "And you did what I could not by sitting on the floor." Claire looked down at Ollie. He did not need a command. Nathaniel's gaze remained on her.
No.
He needed to feel safe. The mark beneath Claire's sleeve suddenly warmed. She uncovered it and watched a new silver line appear beside the crown. Nathaniel stepped closer, his face becoming serious. "Claire." She looked up. "What?" His eyes remained fixed on her wrist. "The mark is changing again." The new silver line did not stop at the crown. It curved slowly around Claire's wrist, glowing beneath her pale skin like moonlight finding a path through frost. Nathaniel stared at it for several seconds before lifting his eyes to hers. That was not there before. "I noticed." Claire tried to sound calm, but Ollie must have sensed her uncertainty because he pressed closer against her. Nathaniel crouched several feet away. "Something is completing the mark." Before Claire could answer, a bell sounded somewhere deep within the citadel.
Once.
Then twice. Nathaniel rose immediately. The softness vanished from his expression, replaced by alert concentration. A royal guard appeared in the doorway. "Your Majesty," someone entered the eastern wing using an old service passage. "The guards have secured the corridor, but we believe the intruder was searching for Prince Oliver." Claire's arms tightened instinctively around Ollie. Nathaniel noticed. "Stay here. The royal guard will protect you both." He turned toward the door. Ollie whimpered. Nathaniel stopped. Claire looked down at the pup and understood.
"He does
not want you to leave." Nathaniel returned and knelt beside his nephew. "I will not go far." Another sound came from the hallway, followed by hurried footsteps and voices calling for the doors to be secured. No violence.
No chows.
Only urgency spreading through the citadel like cold wind beneath a door. Nathaniel motioned toward an adjoining sitting room. "This way." Claire carried Ollie inside, while two guards remained at the entrance. A moment later, a shadow crossed the frosted glass of the balcony doors. Ollie stiffened. Claire's heart jumped. The door handle moved. Nathaniel stepped between Claire and the balcony, just as the doors opened. A cloaked stranger stood outside, clearly startled to find the king waiting. "Stop," Nathaniel commanded. The stranger froze. Guards entered from the corridor, and within seconds the intruder surrendered, without resistance. But something slipped from beneath the stranger's cloak and skidded across the floor. Claire recognized it immediately. A silver chain with the same black clasp she had found around Ollie's neck. "That is his," she whispered. The stranger suddenly reached toward it. Claire moved first, pulling Ollie safely behind her. Nathaniel reached down at the same moment, and the sharp edge of the broken clasp caught his palm. "Nathaniel." Claire stepped toward him. "I am fine." He opened his hand. A single drop of blood touched Claire's wrist as she reached instinctively to check him. The world seemed to fall silent. Heat rushed through the mark.
Claire gasped.
Silver light swept around her wrist, filling every unfinished space until the crescent, wolf, and crown became one complete symbol. Ollie gave a soft, almost joyful sound. Nathaniel went completely still. "What is it?" Claire whispered. He did not answer. His gaze remained fixed on the completed mark. Then he looked toward an elderly royal advisor who had just entered the room. The man stared at Claire's wrist and slowly removed his glasses. "I have seen that symbol only in the oldest Hawthorne records," he said. Claire's heartbeat quickened. "What does it mean?" Nathaniel finally looked into her eyes. For the first time since she had met him, the Alpha King seemed uncertain of his own voice. "It is not a protection mark." Claire waited. Nathaniel swallowed. "It is the ancient mate mark of the Hawthorne line." Claire heard the words, but for several seconds they refused to make sense. Mate mark. Her gaze dropped to the silver symbol circling her wrist, complete now, glowing softly as if it had always belonged there. Ollie remained pressed against her side, calm again, while Nathaniel stood only a few feet away with an expression she could not read. "That cannot be right," Claire whispered. The elderly advisor approached slowly. The Hawthorne records describe the mark clearly. The royal child recognizes a safe soul first. The bond completes only when the reigning Alpha's blood answers that recognition. Claire looked at Nathaniel. "So, your nephew chose me, and that somehow means destiny chose for both of us?" Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "It means we need answers. Nothing more will be decided tonight." His words should have reassured her, yet Claire suddenly remembered every person in Frostvale who had decided what she was before ever asking what she wanted.
Broken. Weak.
Worthless. Now an ancient mark threatened to replace those words with another label.
Mate.
Nathaniel seemed to understand the fear behind her silence. "Claire, nobody will force meaning onto that mark before you understand it." The next morning brought an unexpected discovery. The captured stranger had carried documents connecting the kidnapping to a small group operating through Frostvale's eastern territory. Nathaniel ordered an immediate return to the pack, and by afternoon Claire found herself traveling the same snowy road she had left only a day earlier. This time, Ollie rode beside her in human form, a quiet 6-year-old boy with pale blonde hair and familiar amber eyes. His small hand stayed wrapped around 2 of her fingers. When the royal party entered Frostvale, the entire pack gathered outside the meeting hall. Claire felt their stares before she saw their faces. Marcus stood at the front. His confidence disappeared when Nathaniel entered with Ollie on one side and Claire on the other. Inside the hall, the evidence was presented. Plainly, the broken chain had been traced to supplies stored near Frostvale. Records showed that outsiders had used an abandoned lodge beyond the Eastern Trail. Marcus had not ordered the kidnapping, but his careless oversight had allowed strangers to move through his territory unnoticed. Then the conversation turned to Claire. "Your Majesty," Marcus said carefully, "whatever service she provided, she is still only an Omega." Claire felt the old words reaching for her again. Nathaniel did not raise his voice. "Only?" Marcus hesitated. Nathaniel looked around the hall. "When a royal child was lost in your forest during a winter storm, how many of you searched after hearing something in the snow?" Nobody answered. How many stopped? Silence. Nathaniel turned toward Claire. "She did." Claire's throat tightened. She had no title, no command, and no reason to believe helping him would bring her anything. She simply saw someone frightened and chose kindness. Marcus lowered his gaze. Nathaniel faced the room again. "If that is what you call weakness, Frostvale has misunderstood strength." Claire looked at the people who had once laughed when she lowered her head. Nobody laughed now. But their silence no longer mattered as much as she thought it would. She did not need their shame to repair her dignity. She had never lost it. Ollie squeezed her hand. Claire looked down at him, then slowly raised her chin. Nathaniel watched her, but he did not step forward to claim her or announce her future. He simply stood beside her. For the first time in Claire's life, power was not asking her to become smaller. It was making room for her to stand. By sunset, fresh snow had begun falling over Frostvale again, softening rooftops, roads, and every footprint left behind by the crowded day. Claire stood at the edge of the eastern forest where she had found Ollie 2 nights earlier.
The place looked smaller now.
Quieter. She could still remember kneeling there with frozen fingers, believing she was simply helping a frightened pup survive the storm. She had not known that one small choice would carry her into a royal citadel, place an ancient mark on her wrist, and bring her back to Frostvale, standing beside a king. Footsteps pressed gently into the snow behind her. She did not need to turn. Ollie finally fell asleep, Nathaniel said. Claire smiled. Human form or wolf? Human. Although he insisted on keeping 3 blankets and the wooden wolf Elder William gave him. Nathaniel stopped beside her, leaving enough space that she never felt crowded. For a while, neither spoke. Snow settled across the dark shoulders of his coat. Claire looked at the completed mark beneath the fading light. What happens now? Nathaniel was quiet. That depends on what you want. She turned toward him. The records say, I am your mate. The records describe a bond. His gray eyes met hers. They do not own your future. Claire searched his face. You are the Alpha King. Everyone expects you to claim what the mark says belongs with you. Something softened in Nathaniel's expression. You are not something to be claimed, Claire. The words reached somewhere deeper than she expected. All her life, rank had been used to tell her where to stand, when to speak, and how little space she deserved. Now the most powerful alpha she had ever known was offering her something nobody else had bothered to give her.
Choice.
Nathaniel extended his hand but stopped before touching hers. A mark can reveal a possibility. It cannot replace your consent. If you return to your cabin tomorrow, I will make certain Frostvale respects that decision. If you come to Hawthorne Citadel, you will come because you chose to. Not because Ollie chose you. Not because ancient magic chose you. And not because I am king. Claire looked at his open hand. And what do you choose? Nathaniel smiled faintly. I choose to hope you take my hand. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it, small and surprised and warmer than the winter air had any right to allow. She looked toward the hollow beneath the pine tree where everything had begun. She had spent years waiting for someone else to decide she was worthy. Suddenly, she understood that worth had never required their permission. Claire placed her hand in Nathaniel's. The silver mark warmed, but there was no flash of magic this time. No command. Just warmth. Then something stirred deep inside her. Claire froze. For years, whenever she searched inward for her wolf, she had found only silence. Now a presence unfolded gently within her, not fierce or demanding, but steady and unmistakably alive. Claire drew a startled breath. Nathaniel. He immediately looked concerned. What is wrong? Tears gathered in her eyes, but she was smiling. Nothing. Somewhere inside her, a voice she had waited years to hear whispered one word.
Mate.
Claire closed her eyes as the falling snow touched her face. She had thought strength would arrive like thunder. Instead, it came quietly, in the warmth of a rescued child, in a hand that waited rather than demanded, and in the discovery that gentleness had never made her weak. When Claire opened her eyes, Nathaniel was still waiting. This time, she stepped forward by choice, and together they began walking home.